And we kick things over to a man who is no stranger to the Observer. Let me say a pleasant good evening to UNC Senator Wade Mark. Pleasant good evening, sir.
Yeah, pleasant good evening to you, Mikee K,
Yeah.
and your widening and increasingly interesting audience.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you on. In this guava season, as citizens, we know quite well how the economy is not doing well. Let's put it where it needs to be put. It's stagnant, nothing is moving. And when you hear a pronouncement from the government that the opposition is basically chasing away investors and making reference, of course, to the Petrotrin deal that crashed with Mr. Jindal, how does one weigh in on that?
Well, what it tells us, Mikee K, is the utter bankruptcy of the government as it relates to trying to find and manufacture excuses for their failures, for their incompetence, for their incapacity and inability over the last 9 years to formulate and to fashion and to shape and effect a plan, a vision for transforming our beautiful nation. So, with a few months to go before they are compelled under the Constitution to call a general elections, they continue with what we have grown accustomed to over the last 9 years, their playbook. And their playbook has always been in an effort to hide their incompetence and their failure to deliver public goods and services, blame the UNC, blame the opposition, blame the leader of the opposition, blame everybody except the PNM. So we notice that that script has now been loaned to their newly found friend out of the Haryana state of India called Navin Jindal. When you read the contents of his letter to Rowley, you would have concluded that that may have been written out of Balize house, because the same kind of rhythm, the same kind of lame duck excuses, the same blame game is really loaded in that particular piece of correspondence indicating why he did not put in a bid for the Petrotrin refinery. So it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, Mikee K, that they continue, that is the PNM, to blame the UNC and to blame the opposition.
Yeah, but Dr. Rowley said that this is Sandals all over again, making reference, of course, to the hotel franchise that was supposed to, of course, set up in Tobago. He said that it is a result of the behavior of parliamentarians who should be encouraging investment.
No, Mikee, let's understand something. This Prime Minister has prided himself, has boasted to the nation and to the world that he is Trinidad and Tobago's greatest salesman. That is what this man has told the world, and that is what he has told the nation. I think that the Prime Minister is confusing things. He is not Trinidad and Tobago's greatest salesman. He is Trinidad and Tobago's greatest sellout artist. If there was ever a Prime Minister who has done everything to weaken, to dismantle, to almost decimate the middle class, the working class, the small and micro enterprise sector, medium-sized businesses in this country is our Prime Minister. So when he says that we are trying to run, we are trying to chase away investors, I think that is almost an antithesis to what we have been committed to doing over the last 15 years. When we were there between 2010 and 2015, Mikee K, we attracted billions upon billions of foreign direct investment or direct foreign investment into our nation. So we were always in the forefront. We brought about changes to the business and economic environment to make the ease of doing business more acceptable to foreign investors. We sought to reduce the level of bureaucracy in TNT so that we can make the environment more inviting to external investors who are desirous of investing in our country. So for the Prime Minister who has presided over negative foreign direct investment flows over the last 9 years, it is anathema, to say the least, Mikee K. Right now, we are in the negative zone when it comes to the amount of outflows versus inflows of foreign direct investment. We are now in the negative zone under this PNM government. So, as I said, it is incongruous, it is anathema, it is foolish for a Prime Minister, this lame duck outgoing Prime Minister, to blame the opposition and to blame anyone he can blame for his own incompetence and his own failure. We take no blame. What we do stand up for, Mikee K, we stand in the gap between a absolutely corrupt, thieving and lying administration in this nation and defending the public interest, their well-being, their safety and security. We are the ones in the UNC that are providing a safety valve for the people of our great nation. And we take no responsibility for the nonsense that the Prime Minister continue to spew from his lying lips.
And let's look at it like this. Let's start to connect the dots here, Senator Mark. I mean, here it is that Mr. Jindal says, listen, you know, due to the comments by the opposition, he has decided to pull out. I mean, but this is a man who has had his image tarnished in so many ways, with so many allegations. I mean, whether it be the coal scam, or whether it be jumping from one political party in his country to another, all of these things was said. I mean, we have to look at two factors here. One, and I want you to weigh in on this. One, is it that our neighbor 7 miles down from us has the current situation is not as stable as one would think after the elections? And two, is it that Mr. Jindal may have made an assessment that going into the elections here in Trinidad and Tobago, that he couldn't simply put his money behind a horse that isn't guaranteed to win?
Well, what I would say, Mikee K, you have hit the nail on the head. I think he confused the UNC in this country as the alternative government, the government waiting, the most vibrant opposition that we have had for decades in this country. with the opposition in Venezuela. You would recall that Anthony Blinken recently made a statement that the United States has recognized the opposition leader, El Mundo Gonzalez, as the winner of the recently held presidential elections in Venezuela. So, Mikee K, maybe Navin Jindal had his marbles confused, because when the United States made that statement, it sent a clear message to people like Navin Jindal, who, as you know, Mikee K, we recently discovered, based on the literature and the research that we conducted, that Jindal had given a commitment to President Nicolas Maduro that he was going to invest over $800 million into an iron ore / steel complex in Caracas. And in May of 2023, last year, he had signed an agreement with the Maduro regime where they handed over that iron ore / steel complex to this gentleman. Not only that, we discovered in April of 2024, he entered into another agreement, and he was awarded a contract by the Venezuelan government through PDVSA to explore and to produce oil in the Orinoco belt of Venezuela. So I believe, and we verily believe, that what Mr. Jindal was doing, along with the government of our country, with the backing of Maduro in Venezuela, was to purchase our refinery for a song and a dance. And I want to remind you, Mikee K, you'd have been eating basmati pilau with some cooking oil, spew on it as an incentive to soften up any negative reaction and protest against that deal that was being executed without your knowledge, in breach of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act, in breach of the Foreign Direct Investment Act of 1990. And I do not know to what extent you're aware that there are conditions and guidance under the Foreign Direct Investment Act, one of which says that any foreign investor coming into Trinidad and Tobago to invest must provide the relevant authorities with a certificate, a police certificate coming out of his homeland of good character. That is in the conditions and guidance under the Foreign Direct Investment Act of 1990. These are the things that we were standing up for. We were committed to standing up in defense of the Constitution, of the rule of law, of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act, standing up in defense of the Foreign Direct Investment Act and the regulations accompanying that act. So when Mr. Jindal makes his ludicrous statement, we ask the question, did the Prime Minister conduct a due diligence on Mr. Jindal? Because anybody, Mikee K, Googling Jindal, India, Haryana, would have discovered that this man was charged since 2013 for acts of misallocation of mining rights, which is coals in this instance. They call it the coal gate scam.
Yeah.
In which he gained unlawfully some 4 billion US because of the misallocation of blocks of coal to him and his company. And not only that, Mikee K, he bribed the Indian minister with responsibility for coal and mining in order for him to get that contract. And that minister is now facing endless counts of corruption in India as we speak. In fact, only a couple days ago, Mikee K, it was in the Indian Times, I believe, where we came to know for the first time that a special court has been established to try Mr. Navin Jindal and his band, who have all been charged for money laundering and a series of anti-corruption activities surrounding that Colgate scam. So it is passing strange that this government always end up with wrongdoers. That is why it is no accident that they are referred to as the brotherhood of wrongdoers. You remember Quanten?
Yeah.
Quanten was coming here to buy our refinery. We did the research, Mikee K, and we discovered that Quanten was made up of 2 electricians in a suite in San Francisco, California. And they had some little outlet in Texas. And that was the beginning and end of Quanten. This is so that is why I told some people recently, birds of the same feather flock together.
But the thing about it, Senator, is that, I mean, when you look at everything that is being said now, why is it that the Prime Minister seems to have a tabanka over Mr. Jindal's recent reaction as far as not pursuing it?
Well, listen, we don't know. All we know, Mr. Jindal is facing 6 charges of money laundering, criminal charges, I may say, of money laundering and corruption. Mr. Jindal is noted, or it has been alleged, I should say, for bribing ministers of government. So, and you remember, may I remind you, Mikee K, there is a connection between the Haryana Cooperative Marketing and Branding Federation that offered a gift to Trinidad and Tobago, which the government accepted, of certain metric tons of basmati rice, of parboiled rice, of steel rice, and offered this country also several metric tons of containers of cooking oil. Now, nobody never connected or ever connected Jindal Steel and Power to the Haryana cooperative offer, which the government accepted. But you know what? This is the same playbook that was unfolded in Bolivia in 2007 when Jindal Steel and Power got a contract to mine iron ore and told the Bolivian government they were going to invest $2.1 billion. They end up investing less than $100 million US, and then they couldn't start nothing in that place called Bolivia. But you know what they did in the meantime? They opened medical camps. They offered free vaccination to pets, to people who own pets. They offer what is called funds for many schools. They offer medical clinics, right, for several citizens of Bolivia. I think it was about 6,000. And you know what they also did, Mikee K? They offered 35,000 people fumigation services. All that was done on a free basis. And it's the same playbook that was being unfolded in Trinidad. Now, we do not know what happened behind the scenes. We can't tell you what kind of arrangements Dr. Rowley had with this gentleman. What we do know is that man is noted and he has been criminally charged, and the case started in a special court in India on the 4th of August for bribing, for engaging in corruption, and for engaging in money laundering. So we do not know why the Prime Minister is attracted to such characters.
Yeah,
in Tobago.
Well, Senator, especially given the fact that there are other interested parties in the refinery, and they are not getting the privilege of being highlighted.
That is extremely important. That is why we told Mr. Jindal in his absence that he must be grateful and thankful to the UNC, because we may have saved him from a jail sentence. Criminal charges could have been brought against him, because the Prime Minister, as you rightly said, is in breach of the public procurement law, having told Trinidad and Tobago that the bids were closing at the end of May, and then all of a sudden, the bids are extended until the end of July. And then you hear Mr. Navin Jindal wants to submit a bid. Has the Prime Minister replaced the procurement board? Has the Prime Minister taken over the role of the Office of Procurement Regulation in this country? So this is where your point is very pertinent. There are 9 other bidders for the refinery. Had the government proceeded to grant that refinery to Jindal, that matter would have ended in court, and he would have been a party to those court proceedings. The Prime Minister and his riding partner, Navin Jindal. So he must be grateful and thankful to the opposition UNC from saving him and the Prime Minister from possibly a jail sentence on Cedric Street. And as you know, jail though is not made, it's the right figure.
But let me ask you this as well. I mean, is what we're unfolding here before us, is it a matter that the government seems to be racing against time? Coming up to a general election, is it that these things need to be placed in order to either say have bragging rights or to say that they have sold it or whatever the case may be? Why is it so important, such a critical at this time?
No, Mikee K, this government is extremely desperate. Our economy has collapsed. Trinidad and Tobago is broke. Government has maxed out its overdraft at the central bank. The government, like a drug addict, is borrowing through the various loans act that they recently amended, increasing the ceiling that they can access more money. So recently they borrowed $1 billion from the Royal Caribbean Merchant Bank. They borrowed another $1 billion from the Republic Bank Limited. The government reduced what is called the primary cash reserve requirement formula from 14% to 10%, releasing in the process some $4.5 billion. Who you think would not borrow that money, Mikee K? It is the government. We have a situation where the price of oil is now coming under $70. I think today it was about $72. It is being predicted that it will go as low as $60. You remember we budgeted the price of a barrel of oil at $85 US. Mikee K, what does that tell you? The only reason why Imbo told the truth in the court is because there's an act called the Perjury Act. He cannot go to court on an affidavit and lie. So he had to tell us the truth. So what is the truth, Mikee K? The truth is that our deficit for 2023, 2024 is going to be within the range of 10 to 15 billion dollars. That is where we are heading because the government is only borrowing. The government is not producing. The government is not creating. There are no new streams of revenues for Trinidad and Tobago. That is why they want to bleed us to death with the property tax. And you give them a chance, they will impose new electricity rates on our backs and new water rates. Mikee K, the government is bankrupt. The government has spent in the last 9 years, Mikee K, close to $500 billion. That's $500 billion, Mikee K. It is not to say that we don't have money. We have money. They spent $500 billion. But why are so many people poor in our country? Why is he offering public officers a meager 4%? Why is he offering the minimum wages workers a mere $3 increase when the cost of living is going through the roof? Mikee K, I don't know if you're aware, but I understand from several sources that it is becoming very difficult for women to buy the necessary things that they need at the end of each month because they are too expensive. Tampons and so on are becoming are out of the reach of ordinary citizens of this country.
And that's the thing about it, Senator. Does the citizens understand what $500 billion is? $500 billion in the hands of citizens, where it is that nothing was invested, nothing is bringing about any revenue stream, nothing is being used to elevate the lives of the citizens. Do people actually grasp the fact that all of this money was spent and there's nothing to show for it?
Yeah, nothing to show. And that is why, Mikee K, I raised at a news conference on Sunday that the government has to account for the undervaluation of the sale of the MHIL shares owned by Clico, which is owned 49% by the people of T&T for a difference of $300 million. Why did the government sell, Mikee K, our shares in the Methanol Holdings International Limited, 56.53%, for some $347 million, which is equivalent to something like about $2.4 billion, when the last carrying value of that plant was close to $2.61 billion, with no valuation done for 6 years. And in 2022, methanol prices, Mikee K, went through the roof 3 to 4 times. You went to Australia and you buy 2 Cape-class vessels. We understand the Australian Navy bought that through the National Bank of Australia for 300 million TT equivalent, 150 million each. We went and buy those same 2 Cape-class patrol vessels for $600 million. Where the next $300 million gone, Mikee K? This is what is going on. There's a lot of corruption in our nation. And you remember, the government took almost about 10 years before they could implement the public procurement law. And the fellow who was the former procurement regulator said we were losing close to $5 billion every year. So we estimate at the end of 8 years, because of the failure of the government to implement the procurement law, we may have lost between 40 to 50 billion dollars through leakage, bid rigging, corruption. So the government has facilitated large-scale grand theft, grand corruption in this country, waste, condominium. And you want now to come and break our back to pay what? Property tax. To do what? Increase rates for electricity. To bring more water rate increases on our backs. At the same time, Mikee K, the cost of living crisis continue to blow in the faces of people.
Yeah.
How people are living, how people are existing in our country is anybody's guess, Mikee K. People cannot have 3 square meals a day. They cannot afford it because their purchasing power has collapsed, has declined in Trinidad and Tobago. And the government is the main culprit because the government has facilitated corruption, maladministration, misgovernance, and poor corporate governance in our country.
It is mind-boggling, Senator. Before you go, tomorrow, UNC pre-budget consultation. I know you're organizing. Please tell the viewers.
Yes, well, tomorrow I'd like to invite our viewers who are taking in this engagement that we are involved in at this time, that we'd like to extend a very warm invitation to them to come to the head office, the conference hall of the SWWTU hall at around 4 p.m. tomorrow evening, where we are going to have a pre-budget consultation exercise. We want the people to participate. We want to hear the voices of the people. We want people to come out and give their piece on what they think ought to be in a budget, how the economy has impacted on their lives. And when we get those important views from the people, we will generate a report, send it to the Honorable Leader, and those things will be reflected in a budget response for 2024-2025. It starts at 4 p.m. and we would like to invite all and sundry to come in their numbers at the SWWTU hall tomorrow evening at 4 p.m.
On Ryson Road. Thank you so much, Senator. Keep up the good work and best of luck to you and your entire team. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Mikee K.
Thank
My
you,
pleasure.
sir. All right.